how's it going? Right. Marvels. This is really good. This is super good. It's essentially a look at... It's basically a look at the Marvel Universe, the early Marvel Universe, through the eyes of the man on the street. Essentially, it's not a superhero tale through the lens of the superhero. It's basically key moments during the 50s and 60s Marvel Comics through the lens of just a regular Joe on the street. This guy, the guy that in question, is a reporter, well, not a reporter, he's a photographer called Phil Sheldon. We open up, and the book starts with the original Human Torch, not Johnny Storm, but the one that the like android one, who was created by Dr. Phineas Thomas Horton. And he's kind of recounting his life, his creation, and how he felt during his early days as the Human Torch. Not only just being an android, but also the fact that he is, he's a burning man. People are scared of him, So when the actual story, starts, it's in 1939. It's the war is about to begin, and well, there's kind of tension, and it's in America, and J. Jonah Jameson is having a conversation with this this other photographer called Phil Sheldon, and Phil Sheldon decides to go to this show that this doctor is putting on, and the show is all about this burning man. And when they actually see the Human Torch being revealed, no one believes it. Everyone thinks it's like trickery of the eye, like something's happening. But no. And then, like, the doctor gets, like, labelled crazy, and over the next few days, this, like, machine, or what's being labelled as a machine, this kind of android, is buried underground, and it re-emerges and kind of, like, jumps into the air. Over the next few days, like, more of these Marvels, as they're being called, start showing up. The next one being Namor, who everyone thinks is a villain at this point. And meanwhile, Phil Sheldon is going through his inner monologue. He's like, for once in our lives, we weren't the gods anymore. We saw these people who could do these things, and we're just sat, and all we can do is watch them. And then we see this massive battle between Namor and the Human Torch. And we don't follow the fight, we follow Phil Sheldon following the fight, trying to get pictures. And we see it all from ground level, inside a bar. Phil Sheldon's having drinks with some friends, and then Namor comes onto the television. Then we see, at the end of their fight, Human Torch and Namor shaking hands. The next day, Phil decides to break it off with his then girlfriend who he's meant to marry, because he feels as though he can't marry a woman that he can't protect in this world, which, you know, is full of these super beings. And then we see the introduction of Captain America. We see everyone's in full support of Captain America because he is one of their own. And then we see these newsreels of the invaders, the early invaders, Namor, Human Torch, and Captain America. And they start calling them our boys. Then, in a few more days, there's a massive tidal wave, and it's another massive fight between Namor and the Human Torch. And during the fight, a bit of rubble hits Phil Sheldon's eye, and he's blinded in that eye, and he has to wear an eye patch. And then we see that there's even more. At the end of this, Namor and Human Torch reconsider what's going on, and they partner up again, and they go back into fighting the war. It's about a decade later. There's more Marvel showing up. Captain America's just come out of the ice. We see people's reaction to Iron Man, to Thor, to Giant Man, and the inner monologue that's going on throughout this is, it was life or death, it was grand opera, it was the greatest show on earth, and we, every single one of us, had the best seat in the house. All the while throughout this, Phil Sheldon's trying to get a book written, and he goes to try and get like a signing or a deal so he can actually write this book. Whilst on the way home from like signing this deal, he notices a mob chasing down these guys who end up being the X-Men. And a rush of terror like fills Phil Sheldon, because he believes, he's one of those people that believes that the mutants are evil. Later on, at a gala that's hosted by Alicia Masters, that has a lot of other superheroes there, including the Fantastic Four, Phil Sheldon obviously gets in to get some photos. When he comes back, his kids are talking to each other, whispering to each other, and he's kind of curious about what's going on. Then he sees on the news that Reed Richards and Susan Storm, who have become kind of celebrities in their own right, are, and you see that this world kind of treats superheroes as kind of celebrities. One minute labeling them as heroes that light our finest hour, the next minute shaming everything that they do and that they stand for, and look, they saved the world, but the buildings fell down. You know. And we see this massive riot because there's another mutant that's out, and Phil Sheldon goes into his basement because his kids basically yell at him, going, "Daddy, don't let them hurt her." And he looks in his basement, and there's a child in his basement with huge, like, bug eyes, and she starts crying, and it's obvious what's going on. Over the next few days, Phil Sheldon's attitudes towards superheroes and mutants begins to change, and he decides, I'm going to give this mutant that I found in my basement away to the X-Men, because they can help her and train her and do all this other stuff. And then he realizes, when he actually saw Cyclops, he remembers the fear that he felt at that moment, and he decides not to. So he then goes to the wedding of the Fantastic Four, but he's too busy thinking about this mutant that's in his house to think about what's going on in this wedding. He just sees a load of crowded superheroes, and he thinks, well, why didn't anyone attack at that point? We then see another massive mob, clear, and it's absolute chaos. The bus stops are on fire, cars are getting broken into, and then these lights flash over, and it's the Sentinels. Phil Sheldon goes home, and he sees a note written. It's obviously this mutant girl, who's like, "Thanks for everything, but I have to leave. I don't want you getting hurt because I'm here." And she obviously left. And the next few pages are Phil comforting his daughter, basically saying going, I don't know if she's going to be okay. I honestly don't. I can't give you a solid answer on that. Over the coming weeks, Phil Sheldon begins to read more into people shaming the superhero community, not just for the fact that they're leaving a lot of property damage, but also for the fact that they're just larger than life, and that people are scared of stuff that they don't understand. And Phil Sheldon's lived in the moment. He's lived throughout this kind of renaissance of this kind of emergence of super beings, and he's seen the good and the bad that they can do. But he's also taken his kids to the park, and he doesn't have time to think about all this kind of superhero malarkey. And then some guy wearing this billboard that says Judgment Day starts waving a flyer saying 3 things and then the end of the world. And the next day the sky begins to burn. Then the sky becomes rocks, and this silver being descends from the sky of rocks. And everyone's like, where's the Avengers? Why is no one doing anything? And then the Human Torch flies up to fight this thing, and then Galactus shows up, and the Fantastic Four go to fight this, and this other being called Uatu the Watcher shows up, and there's very little dialogue as this happens. It's all kind of the artwork in this book is beautiful, by the way. Alex Ross is such a great artist, but most of it is just the fight between Galactus and the Fantastic Four. And then, but Phil Sheldon is like just walking home to get to his family, and he sees all these people. And he sees all these people like gathered around a church, and one guy's like, "Captain America will sort it out. He'll do anything for us Americans. Just find the man." And Phil Sheldon's just walking home. He just wants to get back to his family. And he turns on the TV, and Galactus has vanished. And he starts reading in the paper that everyone thinks that this whole Galactus thing, this end of the world thing, was a hoax. He goes to the Daily Bugle to talk to Jonah Jameson. Jonah Jameson is the one printing that it's a hoax. And Peter Parker walks in, and he's giving J. Jonah Jameson pictures of Spider-Man, and in Phil Sheldon's mind, that makes him think, ooh, that Peter Parker, he's a bit of a dick. I don't like him, because he doesn't like the superheroes, not knowing that Peter Parker is actually Spider-Man. He's just doing it to pay the bills. But, you know, you win some, you lose some. We then deal with how the world reacts to the Avengers being shot into space to fight the Kree Skull War. And we see how Phil Sheldon's book that's eventually been published has been released. We see people like hate pieces on Iron Man, hate pieces on Black Widow, hit pieces on Spider-Man, and this is the biggest one because it's labeling him for the death of Captain George Stacy. Phil Sheldon gets called out for an interview with Luke Cage, which he abruptly leaves, saying there's more important things. Where he goes to interview a woman who lives in the same apartment as Luke Cage, who saw what actually happened between Spider-Man and Captain Stacy, and of course she saw it as Spider-Man being the bad guy. Then then Phil Sheldon decides, I'm gonna have to have an interview with Dr. Octopus himself. And he does. And Dr. Octopus essentially just confesses. He's basically like, yeah, I killed him, and I didn't mean for it to look like Spider-Man did it, but because it looks like Spider-Man did it, that's even better for me. And Phil Sheldon knocks on a final door, this door belonging to Gwen Stacy. And Phil Sheldon has several meetings with Gwen Stacy, and starts to kind of not form a like bond with her, like a father-daughter bond. It's more kind of like a friendship that he builds with her, and a kind of respect. And he sees her as kind of this almost perfect being that these Marvels were meant for. Because during a Namor attack, she's like, these things are beautiful. Why does so many people hate this? The craftsmanship is so good, and the wings, and he's just looking at Gwen Stacy like someone that's as in awe of the Marvels as he is. The next time that he goes to visit Gwen Stacy, she's gone. She's not at home. He starts walking to Peter Parker's house, which is where he thinks she is, and sees her being carried by the Green Goblin. And all the while through this inner monologue, he's basically like Spider-Man's going to go there. Spider-Man's going to save her. He always does. It's just what they do. And Spider-Man beats the Green Goblin. But when he shoots the web out to get Gwen Stacy, it snaps his neck. It snaps her neck. And the rest of this book, the next few pages, are just Phil Sheldon in a absolute depression because this woman that he found that was kind of, you know, what, she was the one that could fight the battles for him because she was young. She could, you know, come in and basically shepherd the world to kind of respect these Marvels that spent most of their lives or most of their hours protecting people that shat on them. And then at the end of the book, Phil Sheldon kind of snaps out of his depression, and he's like, let's get a family photo together, but the kids aren't here. Let's get a family photo with this kid, the guy in his paper round. What's your name, kid? And he's like, Danny Ketch. And my name's Danny Ketch. And he's like, let's have a picture with Danny Ketch. This fine, ordinary boy, Danny Ketch. And if you know your thing about comic books, then you know who Danny Ketch is. The second Ghost Rider. Yeah, I love Marvels. I think it's a really interesting book. I read this in a day. I couldn't put it down. You would think by how it's described, it's not action-packed, it's really slow. It's a character piece. But it's a character piece for someone that, you know, hasn't, you know, a complete nobody. Someone that's, you know, just watching these events transpire. These larger-than-life events transpire. And it's kind of like, how would we, as people, react to the Fantastic Four, react to Galactus coming down from the sky? How would we react to the skies literally being on fire? How would we react to people like Captain America, to Namor, to the Human Torch, to Giant Man, to Spider-Man? How would people like us see people like that? That's kind of... And that's why Marvels is kind of the perfect book. And Alex Ross's art, come on now. It's Alex fucking Ross. There's a reason why he does every fucking cover under the sun now. Because he's that guy. He's that painterly style. It's kind of amazing. And it's awe-inspiring. Like the double page spreads in here. Every panel has so much detail, so much, you know, heart and soul put into it that you just don't see these kind of like, you don't see an artist that puts so much care and attention into every single bloody panel as commonly nowadays as you do with Alex Ross. And you kind of have to when you're working with paint. You have to have that level of detail with every single panel. When you're working with like art and digital art nowadays, you can be a bit more rushed with it because it's not as intricate as paint, where you make one mistake and you literally fuck up the entire book. But yeah, Marvels is amazing, and I'm just gonna say I give it a 10 out of 10. It's reaching up to the 25-minute mark. Yeah, 10 out of 10. Marvels is so bloody good. Read it now. Do it. Your life's dependent on it. If you're a fan of Marvel Comics and you haven't read this, then you're not a true fan. Go and read this. Track it down. Hunt it down. Go and read it. It's bloody brilliant. You will not regret a single moment. I'll see you guys in the next video. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, give it a comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell for more videos. Peace.